As we start section 4 in our geometry chapter, which is chapter 2, we talk about parallelograms and triangles, and we need a little bit of vocabulary to back us up. We remember that parallelograms are four-sided figures that have two sets of sides that are parallel to each other. So rectangles qualify as parallelograms, so do squares, and so do parallelograms that have the slanted sides. Triangles have three sides. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down here and start with our first formula. To find the area of a rectangle or square, we need to use the area. The area will equal length times width. Okay? The shortened form of saying that would be to write A equals L times W. Now, for the sake of this chapter, length and width can pretty much be substituted back and forth with base times height. So keep that in mind as we work through. So for our first example, if we have a rectangle with a base of 120 yards and a height of 53 yards, we would use this formula to find our area. So we would write down our formula first. A equals L times W. It's very important that you are writing your formulas down and that you're showing your work. Without your work, we can't see where you make errors to help you get things straightened out so that you know how to solve these correctly. So area equals length times width. So on our next line we'll write A equals length. Our length is 120. Our width is 53. We filled in our numbers. And then we're ready to solve. So on our third line, area equals 120 times 53 equals 6,360. And then we have to add our label. Our label is yards. And because we're finding area, our yards have to be squared. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at triangles. Triangles, you find the area by taking the base times the height and dividing it by 2. Now remember, the height has to be found at a 90-degree angle. So if we have a triangle that looks like this, and our base is 2.6 inches, our height isn't going to be this over here. Our height has to be at a 90-degree angle, so our height has to come from here. So let's say our height is 3.1 inches. Okay, to solve for that, we're going to use the formula area equals base times height divided by 2. We're going to fill in for those numbers. Area equals, the base is 2.6, our height is 3.1 divided by 2, and then we can solve. Area equals, we multiply 2.6 by 3.1, and then we divide it by 2 on our calculator, and we get 4.03. We have to keep our label in inches, but because now we have area, we need inches squared. Make sure you're showing your work. Okay, here's our last example problem. It's area of a trapezoid. Trapezoids have a longer base on the bottom and a shorter base on the top. Kind of looks like a triangle with the top chopped off. Okay? So if we have a trapezoid that looks like this, and our measurements are, let's say, 10 centimeters on top, 12 centimeters on the bottom, and our height, again, our height has to be at a 90-degree angle. Our height is 6 centimeters. We need to go ahead and fill in for our formula. Our formula is area equals height, equals 1/2 of the height, 1/2 of the height times the addition of base 1 and base 2. Okay. Now, you can see up here that the formula is written a little different because I put the divided by 2 on the bottom, which we can do. And actually we should do that because that's more consistent with how we're doing our triangles. So we'll go ahead and put the divided by 2 on the bottom. Now let's fill in our numbers. Area equals, the height is 6, the first base is 10, the second base is 12, and all of that gets divided by 2. So when we solve, our area equals 6 times 22 divided by 2. And when we get our final answer, we multiply 6 times 22 divided by 2. Our area will equal 66 centimeters was our unit of measure over here, remember? And we have to square it because we're finding area.